What's up, everybody? Welcome to the THPstrength podcast. My name is Isaiah Rivera. I have a 50.5-inch vertical, which is the highest officially recorded vertical on the planet. This is John Evans, 42-inch vertical off 1 foot, and he also writes all my workouts. And today we are going to be answering the question, do sprints make you jump higher? But before we get into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at THPstrength.com. If you want to jump higher and get rid of knee pain, go check them out. They are the #1 vertical jump trainers on the planet. They happen to be us, by the way. But yeah, if you're interested in that, go check it out. But let's get into it. I think a good place to start is with our anecdotal experiences with sprinting. If you didn't know this, John's background is actually in track and field. There was a comment we had in one of our previous videos, and there was a guy, he was like, can you relate all of this to high jump? And then I was like, well, funnily enough, John, that's what.
Actually, I can do that quite a bit. So yeah, I coached at Duke. Well, I guess in order of chronologically, I started in high school, ended up working with a guy named Mike Young, who coached at LSU for 4 years when they won 8 national championships, indoor, outdoor, or 7 or something like that. And then I went on to coach for him, went to Duke and coached there for a year, where we won ACCs on the women's side for high jump, first and second place while I was there. And yeah, I've had the privilege to speak with a lot of super talented guys. Shelby McEwen, what's the guy's name from Tennessee? Slipping mind. Oh my gosh.
I don't remember his name.
Oh yeah, Ivan Nuck. Daryl Sullivan.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know why that's on my mind. And currently I'm working with a guy named TJ Shankar, who is from Kansas State. So I've worked with a lot of fast guys. Oh, I was also at Altus and worked with all those guys. I guess that's pretty important.
Yeah.
A lot of world record holders and stuff. So yeah, ton of experience in track. That was my passion, my first passion, even before dunking. I would say, arguably, spent more time studying that. So I know a lot about sprinting. I know a lot about track and how to get faster. Maybe at one point probably knew more than I know about dunking even. So yeah, I think that it is an integral part of any speed and power development program. It is a great training tool. It is a form of plyometric, and Isaiah has been on and off doing sprints for 5 or 6 years on the training that I've given him. Me personally, I've done a ton. I don't even know. I've sprinted 3 times a week basically since the time I was 15 until I was 26 or 27. So a lot of sprinting and sprint volume. And with my personal experience, as I got faster and more explosive, it helped my high jump a lot. But I did not actually see as much of a correlation with my dunking skill as I would have wanted to. I did not dunk nearly as much as what a lot of these other guys did. I spent more time getting faster, getting more explosive in the weight room, seeing all those metrics come up. But I did not see as much of a return on investment when it came to actually dunking as I did when I focused more on dunking. And I think this is maybe one of the reasons why I've started to personally move away from it as a coach. I think that it is a valuable tool. I think it's a great tool, and I like it for specifically body composition. But you know what, actually, I will say this. When I did a lot of sprinting, it paid off later on. That's the biggest thing I would say. It's not something where you have, what the heck is that? It's not something where you have a quick return on investment. It's like investing, right? You put that time in and it pays dividends in the long term, but in the short term, it definitely does not have as much of a payoff. So again, quick anecdote, 2020, 2021, training to East Bay, I sprinted 3 times a week and was doing intensive, extensive tempo 2 times a week. I did that for 3 months. My vertical went down a lot. And then come October or end of September, after a deload, I jumped higher than I ever did, right? I have not sprinted as much since that time, mostly because of my hips and time. I just don't have as much time as I used to, and logistically it's more difficult. You know, we're running a business, so it can be difficult. So that said, and Isaiah it's for him not as much of a priority at this point in his athletic career either. And so I would still do it if I were trying to peak and hit all-time highs probably, but I can spend my time more wisely and have a better ROI doing other things, right? So focusing on creating good content for you guys is really important to us and to the business. So I have to spend more time doing that. Dunking on a low rim, gonna be way better use of my time.
And more fun.
And more fun, yeah. Working on my strength and things like that, better, especially for 2 foot. And so I've been able to maintain my vertical fairly well without it. And if I wanted to get to, again, all-time highs, I probably would put it back in my training for periods of time at least.
Yeah.
So go ahead with your experience.
I've been sprinting. I think my earliest memory of sprinting is when I was 13, 14. I did Hershey track meet. Ran the 100 meter thing in like 13.9 seconds. 13.92. Really?
Yeah, when I was 13.
Yeah, 13.92. I won the softball throw. They had a
Oh, really?
They had a softball throw in the Hershey meets. And then I forgot what I high jumped at that time. It was probably like 5'1".
That's not bad actually at 13. That's pretty good. Most people are in the fours at that point.
Yeah. So that was my earliest memory of sprinting. We did it in high school when I was first starting to dunk. We would do it for conditioning class. Never measured my times though. And then I basically stopped sprinting from my senior year of high school up until I was about 21 when I started working with John again. It was like 4 years that I didn't sprint. And then I essentially sprinted 3 times a week for the next 3 years straight, probably, with our training. Things that I noticed, I think it was a huge part of getting me in shape early on. I think before, I wasn't necessarily out of shape compared to normal athletes, but when you compare my fitness now to before I started working with John, my body composition improved drastically. I got a lot fitter, both, just my body composition and cardiovascularly.
That's still kind of a weakness of yours.
Yeah, I just became a much better athlete overall. I think I was probably sprinting in the high 12s. I think we did after load management.
That video popped up on my feed the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that was 5 years ago. You know that?
Really?
At that UCF track that I did with you guys?
That's
that was
crazy.
5 years ago.
That's wild. After a year of after 5 months of actually sprinting, like the first 5 months I started sprinting, I tested 12:1, 100-meter dash. And then I actually got significantly faster over the next year, like significantly faster. Went to North Carolina. Me and John were sprinting against each other
He was beating me
a lot. And John went from way faster than me to I was able to catch him.
I think the competitive aspect for you definitely pushed your intensity and intent up quite a bit.
Like Michael Jordan.
And we didn't really think about it too much. We were on grass a lot and just competing. And it was fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's always fun to do that. But I would usually gap them upright. And then there was one day where we were on concrete uphill. We were at the park at White Oak.
It was like very slight incline, like very, very slight incline.
And very, very low grade, which I like for hill sprints a lot. I don't like to see velocity drop too much. So, the first one blows me off the line, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, that was just a bad rep. And, I kind of was like, all right, it's not a big deal. I might have even, he started first. That's what it was. We went on his start, and he just like outran me. And I was like, okay, it's not a big deal. I'll get him on the next one. So we went on my start. So I went, and he just freaking bolted off the line, smoked my ass. And then upright is usually where I would start to gap him, and he just kept going. It was just like, I can't compete. And that was when I was like, okay, now you're fast. Like, I'm not crazy fast, but there was a time where I was low 11s, high 10s in the 100. And at the time I was sprinting a lot and doing a lot of plyos, and I was pretty lean. And, those are all things that are going to help you run faster. And Isaiah, he was rolling. And he was having issues with his TFL at the time and his posterior tib. And was that what it was?
Actually, the TFL hadn't started yet.
Oh, it was posterior tib though, right?
Posterior, yeah. I had to sprain my ankle, yeah.
And so we were sprinting a lot because we couldn't jump too much
Yeah.
at the time, but we still needed a power stimulus. So we were doing it a lot. But his vertical, I think, was 47 or 48 at the time. I think initially...
It was 46, and then after that summer, I hit 48 for the first time. Like I crossed the 12-foot mark.
Yeah. I guess we always get confused because of the random testing in Utah.
Yeah.
I never know what happened when, because we didn't
Yeah.
measure the vertec. We have no idea. Probably leaning an inch or two.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah, pretty much we saw his vertical climb up a lot early on from it,
Yeah.
partially because of the just
Also,
novel stimulus.
I also want to say later when I tested, so I continued sprinting throughout that whole time, and then the year I tested 50.5, so I tested 50.5. The year before that, sprinted a ton, moved 29 palms. I was by myself, and then that was actually probably the highest
Sprint
intensity and highest volume that
Did you
I ever
test 50
sprinted.
when
I
you were sprinting?
tested 50.5.
After sprinting a lot?
I sprinted a ton, highest volume ever for I would say 4 months, and then I didn't sprint for 6 months, and then I tested 50.5 for the first time.
So you did what I did. You
Yeah.
loaded and unloaded it.
Yeah. But that was definitely the fastest I've ever been. John was having me do 120 meter sprints, and I was in literally 120-degree weather outside. So that was definitely the most in shape I've been as far as sprinting. I would say knowing I ran 12.1, not in very good sprint shape, I probably was somewhere in the 11s.
I think so, for
at my
sure, for sure.
all-time best.
I think you probably were capable when you were your fastest of low 11s, maybe in the high 10s, maybe on a really good day in spikes, but we're never on the track doing max V work and measuring it, so it's really hard to say. That for guys like us that without training are in the 11s, to get under 11 is difficult because
the focus
with
would have to
moderate amount of
shift.
training. We're in the 11s. We would have to really focus on max V to probably drop into the 10s.
Yeah.
Because that's where we would struggle.
And
speed endurance for you.
And then from there, I have not sprinted actually.
Yeah. So a big reason why was your PFP, your back. There was just a lot of issues that kind of came up as we pushed the volume
quality
up. Yeah, the quality would drop a lot in the weight room. And I think moving into the following year, before you tore your TFL, it was kind of bothering it, and I was like, all right, well, I want to try to focus on other things, and I was like, do you really want to do it? And he's like, not really. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to program it, but I can increase the quality and the volume in other areas, and we felt like that was making more of a difference than...
We were turning the big stones.
Yeah.
And it's a similar thing to what you were
rocks.
saying, where it's we have a business to run. Could I
You
get...
don't have the luxury of training an extra hour and a half.
Could I get 0.5% better from it? Maybe, but is it worth... I don't like sprinting, is the other thing. I hate sprinting. And I'm just I'm cool with training, training without it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, you like to do what you like to do, and usually that's the stuff that you're going to have higher quality with. So in the grand scheme of things of what in terms of experience, just based on our two anecdotes and what I've seen in the past, it's very important as a base for having a very high vertical. But at the end of the day, if you're 6 years in, or something like that, or 7 or 8 years in, you've been sprinting a lot, you got a lot of sprint volume in, you know how to run, etc., you probably can get away with not doing it as much anymore. And that's just the nature of long-term athletic development. You start very general, and you get more specific over time. So unless you're probably 5 to 10 years into your jump training journey, you probably should still be sprinting. And then even then, you still might benefit from it. It's just that it's going to take a disproportionate amount of time.
And if you're a THP athlete, you might be wondering why sprinting isn't in your training. We found that it was messing a lot.
With retention.
With retention, yeah.
Guys would just not train. They're like, oh, I have to go to the track. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Or I just won't train altogether. If I can't do everything, then I might as well do none of it.
And then it goes from skipping a workout or skipping sprints to skipping the workout
to not
training at all.
Yep. And so we were like, well, if you want to do the sprints, ask. And we can.
And it was a complaint. The complaint of our workouts was that they're too hard and they take too long. So we started
it's like the 80-20 rule.
Yeah. But if that's you, we can put you on an older training. Like if you want to sprint, we can put you on an older training cycle that has the sprinting in there. But it does add, most gyms don't have a section of 100 meters where you can run. So you usually have to go to the field.
To your training.
You got to warm up, for 20 minutes. The sprint workout takes another 30 minutes, and then you drive there, and then you drive to the gym. It's literally an hour to an hour and a half extra.
I love it, but unless it's good if you're like in high school or college. There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it at that point. But if you have a full-time job, it's going to be really hard to regularly sprint all out unless you really enjoy it and you don't have a wife or kids or a girlfriend. You probably could still, with a full-time job without any of those or a dog, and you got access to a local track near you, you'd be fine. You could do it.
And it is different if you like it.
Yeah.
Like if that's actually something you love doing, then of course, like you're gonna make time for it.
Yep. But yeah, I think we could go into all the physiological aspects of it. I feel like, in short, it's a very good neural stimulus. It's an amazing, fast, short ground contact time activity with really high ground reaction forces horizontally during acceleration and vertically during upright. It's obviously amazing for body composition. I found it to be very effective at working at very high stiffness rates, and it tends to be more specific for one foot. So that, that's a very short, clear, concise reason why it works. In terms of specificity though, I would say it's probably less specific for 2 foot. It's maybe less specific than for 1 foot. It's specific, but it comes at a cost. That's what I would say.
There's also a lot of value.
It's more specific for 1 foot than 2 foot.
There's a lot of value in it during a rehab program as well.
I think so too.
Because a lot of times,
lower force, but higher RFD.
If you're on load management, training can get really monotonous, and then you can also get out of shape pretty easily because you can't load the quads as much, and you're not doing as much elastic work. But it can be a good bridge. Like if you have problems, in knee flexion with things being provocative, upright sprinting is one of the best ways to maintain elasticity. You get in shape. It's fun, you're moving, and it can keep you healthy. There are injuries that happen from...
That's another reason I was going to say.
From sprinting, like you'll be more likely to, pull a muscle. Hamstring tendinopathy is also like really common with it. Achilles issues are really common, but specifically for like patellar tendon rehab, sometimes PFP, upright sprinting is like really good to have in there.
I think so too. That's a big reason why I took it out actually, was during 1 foot jumping, I was using my hamstring a lot, and I was having a lot of hamstring issues on my jump days because I was loading my hamstring so much outside of the jump session, right? Yeah. So I was getting sprint volume in, I'm getting RDLs, I'm getting Nordics, all this stuff, and I kept tweaking my hamstring.
Which is specific, but
yeah,
it's like again, injuries are also specific.
Yeah, exactly. If you have an injury and it's an overuse injury, it's probably because you're doing too much on it, which I was sprinting. Yeah. So cutting that out helped me get healthy and stay healthy, which when I was trying to East Bay, I was trying to windmill off one. That was the #1 determinant of whether I was going to do it.
A good point. Like I don't even remember the last time you had hamstring.
No, I don't have any issues anymore.
Whereas before, it used to be like
every week.
I used to be scared watching John jump.
It's
just like a ticking time bomb. Yeah. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, and I think last year since 2022, I didn't pull it, and I pulled out the spring. So I've learned that about hamstrings is like, if you're a jumper and you have that as a previous injury, and it's an existing issue or pre-existing issue, it's probably not worth doing. You can have it in there and you can build into it. And again, as you get older, then again, it comes at even more of a cost, right? It's more taxing, it takes longer to recover, and injuries, they build up. So the #1 thing that determines you're gonna hurt yourself, have you hurt yourself there before? I have a bunch of times. So mostly when I was speed jumping, I was learning how to speed jump, pulled my hamstring a ton of times. That made it difficult to stay healthy power jumping now, because I pulled it at that point, I think, every other week for like 2 years, because I was just trying to learn to speed jump and I didn't really give a shit about my body. I was like, I'm never gonna break the world record. At that point I was like, probably never gonna windmill even, whatever, and probably never East Bay. I just wanna learn. I wanna be a high jumper. So I, used myself in an experiment, suffered the consequences of it, and now I'm like, oh, wow, I probably could have been a lot further along had I not made those mistakes, but now I also know that I can't do that as much anymore. So I think for, again, a lot of you guys...
That's what we're here for, though. We'll make the mistakes for you.
We'll make the mistakes so you don't have to.
Yeah.
But for a lot of you guys, you're really going to benefit from it unless, again, you have 6 to 10 years of sprinting experience, you probably should be doing it. Now, if you're in that group of people that have gotten hurt or whatever else, not worth doing. I feel like it's a pretty good place to end it.
It's a good rundown. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, give us a 5-star review, please. And you know where to get training, baby. THPstrength.com. We'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.
See ya.